Cold open time. Cold open time. Cold open time. Open cold.
Okay.
Cold,
I got one.
time.
Okay. A movie that you have revisited that you hated on release and now you're okay with. Go.
Oh, fuckity. That's a good one. You just came up with that on the spot?
Yes.
That's a great idea. Oh, shit. If I had a day to think about this. Never Forgiving, No Time to Die.
Nope, not me either.
In
I tried.
A million years. I think for you, there's probably Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. You're probably sweeter on that now than you were before when it came out.
Possibly also Dial of Destiny is kind of teetering on the edge there.
Oh boy.
Yeah. No, because I rewatched it and I thought it's all right, but like I still have the same critiques that I had when we saw it, but I'm not like angry at it.
It hasn't happened recently, but we were talking about Planet of the Apes. I didn't like Rise of the Planet of the Apes.
Oh, you didn't?
When I first saw it.
You nutter.
But I like it now.
Okay.
But like it didn't happen recently. A movie that I didn't like, but I do like now, are probably all of the prequels in the Star Wars movies.
Huh, okay.
I'm even able to sort of sit through the Naboo negotiations and all that nonsense in Phantom Menace, all the political bollocks that you're not interested in.
Right.
And even, Camino, I'll allow that.
Right.
And the clones being from New Zealand. Take that. Yeah. No. Revenge of the Sith I'm really fine with. I never really had a problem with it. There's a couple of... I do think that Hayden Christensen is...
You underestimate my power.
I think he's much better than what he was told to do.
He's much better than George Lucas's script and direction.
Yes. Yeah. I think if you give him a good script with Anakin, he is a really, really good Anakin. Mm-hmm. I've seen some of the scenes from Ahsoka, but I just rewatched Obi-Wan. Oh shit, that should have gone into what have you seen? Mm-hmm. No, but I watched Obi-Wan and I was underwhelmed by it, but I did enjoy every scene that Darth Vader was in. So he did a really good, and also the Anakin sort of flashback was really cool.
Do you have an answer for the flip side of that?
Something
a movie that you
loved
and
have
now frozen over on. There are some. I'll tell you what it is. There are some comedies that I may have this is something else, because if you go back far enough to the point where you're like 12, 13 years old and you're giggling at fart jokes. So there are certain movies that might have aged badly. Yeah. But for example, something in the last 10 years or so that you saw in the cinema that you may have either, one or the other one.
So I find that most of those things, I usually stick with it. Like, you remember we walked out of Shoot 'em Up.
Oh my God. What a piece
No, we
of
didn't
shit.
walk out of it. We watched it all the way to the end.
We watched it all the way through, but we hated it.
We were considering walking out several times. That's the thing where I'm like, I'm never going to enjoy that. That's never going to be a film that I think is fun. So if I really didn't like a movie when I walked out, like Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, super disappointed by that when we left.
Right.
Watched it recently.
Still now.
Okay. Right. Did not like it.
You want to have an episode?
Yes.
Let's have an episode.
Okay.
Here we go!
What's our seat number?
Hello and welcome to What's Our Seat Number, the podcast with the consistency of snot. I'm Johnny Gross. I've been teaching filmmaking to 12-year-olds and now I'm officially old. With me as always is my brother, my co-host, a 3D artist who in his high school yearbook was voted most likely to be Simon Gross. It's Simon Gross!
Did you get bored at the end of writing that?
Oh, Today's movie stars Justin Long as a cancelled movie star who gets trapped in a dark basement and is forced to suck at the teat of a Neanderthal old woman creature played by Conan O'Brien's hair. The movie is, of course, Conan the Barbarian. No, that's wrong.
But what a concept for a movie, though. I mean, you bought me with that. I'm like, I'm listening to that podcast.
Here's some movie news. Movie news. This is The Muse. I'm your wanker, Juan Off-the-Wrist. I'm here with my co-wanker who's just emerged. Can we get through this, please?
So sorry. I got it. Go on.
I'm here with my co-wanker who's just emerged from a mammoth session in the John. Here's holding my breath. Our top stories today. Baby quails hatch from large nose of man who fell asleep under a nest. Fallout from February's Oscars is just starting to catch up with host Jimmy Kimmel, as we haven't done an episode since February. Jokes were limited to why did the chicken cross the road and what has 4 legs and is always ready to travel. Kimmel has now been banned from future hosting appearances after chickens and elephants picketed outside the Chinese theater, claiming the jokes were offensive. And finally, my 3.5-year-old daughter has proven to be more intelligent than 90% of fully grown humans on TikTok. This is the Muse. I have to change that because she's no longer 3.5. She's now almost 4.
Yeah. Furiosa,
a Mad Max saga, has bombed. Well, I wrote this last week,
but the reviews were good.
Yeah, the reviews were good, but the attendance in the cinema was a bit shit. It grossed 58 million worldwide as the time of this writing, which was about a week ago. It made 58 million worldwide against a budget of 168 million. Both audience and critic reviews have been positive. I've been seeing people taking pictures in their screenings of like 1 or 2 people just sort of dotted around the auditorium, and they're asking the question, is cinema dead?
I mean, we can't get into that now.
No, we can't get into that now, but I will say that that last year sort of proved that it wasn't. It's just very possible that not a lot of people want to go see Mad Max. So, I mean, it's a shame, but like a lot of stuff is going to streaming now.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, what's the difference between this year and last year? Last year we had Oppenheimer and Barbie, and they made huge numbers. And I think also Ghostbusters: Frozen Empire also like had a bit of a nosedive, even though it had mixed reviews, but there was some positivity in there. Anyway, the Axel F trailer has debuted. That's another high-profile film going to streaming, and actually looks pretty good.
You know, this is very embarrassing. You know, part of me rather get locked up than get put in this little Fisher-Price-looking squad car. Y'all are the Lego cops. Jane, hey, this is your father. Before you hang up, I'm in town. I've been arrested. And... Hello? You sure y'all paying y'all's bills? Because this phone don't work.
It looks like a lot of fun. It looks like, as I said to you in private and not on a podcast, that it sort of feels like it's doing the same thing as what Maverick did, which is probably the only legacy sequel to really do it right.
Landing,
yeah, which was you're kind of dropped into the middle of this character's life, and they haven't really moved very much aside from aging a bit. They haven't really moved very much from the character you knew 20, 30 years ago, right? I mean, there's some more like weight to Pete Mitchell, aka Maverick, in that movie. There's more weight because he's older, but at the same time, he's still the same, you know, ace pilot, and he's still, you know, he's teaching now, which is what he was being told that he was offered at the end of Top Gun. So, I mean, that's what's great about it, and I feel that in the Axel F trailer, you've still got the same Axel Foley, and he's still doing the same shit, and he's still pulling in Taggart and Rosewood. He's still pulling them into all of his bullshit.
I was really happy to see that they were.
Yeah, and you've got Serge in there and all that stuff, and there's going to be a lot of like nostalgia baiting. But the fact is, it just seems like Beverly Hills Cop 4 and no time has passed, and that's what we want.
Yeah,
you know, I don't need Indiana
Jones, a younger
Jones,
generation who's going to make the older generation look incompetent.
Yeah,
you don't need that.
I don't need to see Indiana Jones at 80 years old falling asleep drunk on a Barca lounger, you know, and you know, banging on the wall and telling the kids to keep the music down. Like, that's not Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
And that to me is not interesting. And I know James Mangold did find it interesting, and he's the one that counts because he's the one that made the movie. But quite frankly, I would have been happy to a la Crystal Skull, be dropped into another Indiana Jones adventure, and that's the story.
It's really interesting that the narrative that is sort of pushed with, you know, returning older characters.
Yeah.
You know, that for some reason Hollywood wants to make them inaccessible, unlikable,
Luke Skywalker,
and dirty. And disgusting, right? Like, you know, that whole thing with the milk coming out of his mouth and all that. Like so unnecessary.
Yeah.
Not in character whatsoever. And it just sort of set the tone immediately. I remember in the cinema seeing that and being super put out by it because it just wasn't. No,
or,
I mean, any other
chucking
character.
the lightsaber.
Yeah, that too. Like, you know, everybody in the cinema sort of went, but I was like, well, he wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
You know, it's not.
But it's annoying because in Force Awakens, a couple of years before, Han Solo is exactly that. He gets you're dropped into Han Solo's life, and he's doing the same shit he was getting up to back in Return of the Jedi. You know what I mean? Like, there's really no reason to hold that back, right? It's the same. I mean, that's what something I appreciated about Afterlife and Frozen Empire is the fact that they've quit being Ghostbusters, but they're still involved in the world of. Once they get going again, they're just the same Ghostbusters that they were back in 1989, right?
Right.
So I really appreciate that, because I think that if you're going to do a legacy sequel, even if you're going to set the characters back a little bit, you still want them to be able to get back to that point
where they were.
Yeah, and I feel like there's a sort of misconception that we want to see our characters kind of broken down and all that stuff.
You're looking for that moment, and you're looking for it to be earned. Like in The Dark Knight Rises, that is an example of where, you know, your character is kind of weakened by something that happened in the last movie. So there's a reason for it. There's no like sort of, you've just come upon this character and he's... Okay, John McClane's a good example of them doing it like shit. Like every time he makes some kind of move forward in his character arc, like, you know, maybe patching it up with his ex-wife or being in a relationship with his daughter, because of casting or scheduling or whatever reasons that they couldn't get those actors back, they then have to write it into the script that he's fallen back into drinking and he's washed up again and he's not... Like, I would love to see it that John McClane like, you know, rises up in the ranks in his career, like, you know, like I want to see how his... Like, you know, the Indiana Jones is not a professor that is, you know, becoming moot and going extinct the way of the dinosaur, like the relics that he hunts. I want to see him becoming a distinguished professor with a lot of respect, and the students, you know, are very thirsty to learn from him. And we actually start the movie not where he's very young and, you know, badly AI'd and whatever, or deep-faked, whatever it is. But where he's the age that he is now and just on another adventure. The movie should start with him being on another adventure and finding, you know, it's like a cold open.
If you're gonna make it at all.
I'm saying that, you know, and then later on in the movie, you can have strong female characters, right? But we didn't need Phoebe Waller-Bridge to be so much more competent than him. He looks incompetent. Yeah. And again, the same thing with Ana de Armas in No Time to Die.
Yeah.
Doesn't need to make James Bond look like a fool.
Or a lechy old man.
This your room?
It's a wine cellar. Okay, come here.
Don't you think we ought to get to know each other just a little bit before we,
Oh, no, no, I'm sorry.
All right.
You do it.
Thank you.
Look, if you look at real life, Clint Eastwood is 93 years old and he's still in the director's chair doing his thing. So it's not completely ridiculous to think that, you know, that Harrison Ford at 80
who is in good shape
could just go on another adventure.
And it's this, you know, we're watching this show on Disney Plus called The Old Man. Right, with Jeff Bridges and John Lithgow. I know you know, but maybe the audience doesn't.
I'm sorry. Yes.
And it's really compelling, but Jeff Bridges is very physical. Like he's, I don't know if it's like, you know, trickery or whatever, you know, stunt doubles, all that, but you know, it's really violent and it's really visceral, and the fights go on. Like there's one fight in the first episode that goes on for about, I don't know, like 15 minutes. It just won't end.
Right.
And you know, we just kind of, we feel like, oh, it's really cool that he's this age, but he's still sort of, you know, he's older, he's slower, but he's still kicking butt. That's fine.
Yeah.
And there was no reason that Harrison Ford couldn't have done that either. It's just poor writing, and it's Disney making the same stupid mistakes
over and over again.
Over and over again.
Next bit of news before we run into next week. Beetlejuice is releasing in cinemas in September, which is another legacy sequel.
We're going to go see that.
We're going to go see that. Did you like the trailer?
I was cautiously optimistic about the trailer.
Okay.
Don't ever say that name.
Beetlejuice.
No, Astrid! I am serious!
If you say his name 3 times, he will appear. Beetlejuice.
The juice is loose. I'm gonna make you so happy.
It all looks very similar.
There's a little bit of stop motion work.
There is a little bit of stop motion in there.
Yeah. And finally, there is a new Steven Spielberg event film set to release in 2026 on the subject of UFOs.
Really?
Yep, that's all the information I have. That was the news. Movie news.
Today's quiz is called the... well, it's got a title, and then a colon, and then a subtitle.
Okay.
Right. So this is the Neg quiz, subtitle, Neg being the subject of our movie today.
Right,
The
you've
Schwarzenegger.
nicknamed him Neg.
Neg.
Mm-hmm.
No, Neg is not a nickname for him. Neg is the sort of...
It's part of his name.
Yeah, but it's the term... I'm teaching you something. And
okay.
if you keep interrupting me...
I'm sorry.
Right? I'm a teacher. I can't talk when someone else is talking.
All right. I'm sorry, Sensei.
Thank you. So you know the Schwarzenegger accent and impression, right?
No, I don't know what you're talking about.
So that is... I'm just ignoring you. That is the Neg.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's what we're calling it.
Okay.
So this is how this quiz
Cone
goes.
the phrase.
Yeah.
Ice that guy. Cone the phrase.
Hang on.
Yeah.
Hang on.
Okay.
So I've chosen some of what I think are your favorites and my favorites and other people's favorites of Schwarzenegger's famous lines.
Mm-hmm.
And how this quiz is played. I remember writing to you last week. You were like, do you have a quiz? And I was like, it's so fucking stupid. So there's two levels to this.
Mm-hmm.
So first I'm going to give you a quote with a blank.
Right.
You have to complete the blank, right?
Blankety blank.
So that gets you a point, right? But then what you have to do is I'm going to be reading the sentence in the most monotonous way that I can, right? Because they're all really obvious. When you complete the sentence, you have to do it in the neg.
Right, okay.
Right? And
you need to make a Photoshop poster of the Meg.
just change Schwarzenegger's face on it, the neg. And add a G on the end. Because I spelled it N-E-G-G. So.
Oh, brilliant.
So I want you to say the full line,
right, yeah.
and then I want you to do it again in the neg, right? So there will be a bing when you get something right, and then after you've gotten... I'll be judging whether the quote was successful or not, whether the impression was good or not. I'll be judging it.
Okay.
If I deem it worthy, I'm sure that for this episode, you're going to have to go through a whole load of... Right? So you're going to put one of those after every successful one. So let's start with an easy one.
Do I get doubloons if I get it all right?
Sure.
Okay.
The first one is, I'll be blank.
I'll be back. Yeah. Back is the...
Ding.
Yeah. I'll be back.
I'll be back.
You can have a lol. So this one's also easy. Hasta la vista, blank.
Baby.
Good. Now do me a lol. Give me a neg.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Awesome. If it bleeds, we can
kill it.
Mm-hmm.
If it bleeds, we can kill it.
If it bleeds, we can kill it.
Okay.
Not on my game today.
Put that blank down.
Cookie. Put that cookie down! You're no! People's lunches. Stop it! Okay.
Okay.
Put that cookie down! Now!
Come on, Cohagen. You got what you want. Give those people blank.
Air. Or rather, come on, Cohagen. You got what you want. Give those people ear.
Okay, so I'm judging that one with a ding ding.
Okay.
Oh my goodness. We'll have it, you know what, 2 lulls for that.
Come on, Cohagen, you got what you want. Give these people air.
Who is your blank and what does he do?
Daddy. Who is your daddy and what does he do?
We're going to play a wonderful game called Who is My Daddy and What Does He Do?
It's not a blank. Not a blank at all.
Tumor. It's not a tumor. It's not a tumor at all.
It's not a tumor. It's not a tumor at all.
Let off some blank, Bennett.
Steam. Let off some steam, Bennett.
Let off some steam, Bennett.
To crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and to hear the lamentation of their...
Women. To crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and hear the lamentations of the women.
Conan, what is best in life? To crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and to hear the lamentation of the women.
Okay, so I've just taken a bunch of puns from Batman
Right.
and Robin.
Okay.
What killed the dinosaurs? The blank age.
The Ice Age. Okay. What killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age.
What killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age!
All right, everyone. Blank.
chill.
Yeah.
All right, everyone, chill.
All right, everyone. Chill.
My condition has left me blank to your pleas of mercy.
Cold.
Yeah.
I'm afraid my condition has left me cold to your pleas of mercy.
I'm afraid that my condition has left me cold to your pleas of mercy.
These two are just from my favorite Schwarzenegger film.
Okay.
He was a good man, a blank man. Do you hear this? Help me get out of here. My God, this man's not dead.
Okay.
He was a good man, a blank man.
Flatulent.
Now you need to do that whole thing.
Okay. He was a good man, a flatulent man. Help me get out of here. My God, this man's not dead. Are you a doctor? Check his chin. The doctor has fainted. Can somebody help this man here? Now I'll take the corpse, the patient. Look, an elephant.
He's a good man. A flatulent man.
Help me! Get me out of here!
My God! This man's not dead! Doctor! I'm a doctor. You a doctor? Yes. Check his chin. The doctor has fainted. Can somebody help this man here? I take the corpse. I mean, the patient. Look, elephant.
The thing that really got me about this was that I was like, are you going to say air or are you going to go ear?
No, it's definitely ear.
Help me! Get me out of here! So funny.
That was
That's
the
it. That's the end of the quiz. That's the neg quiz. What movie are we watching today, Johnny?
The movie that we're watching today is Conan the Barbarian, and it doesn't involve Conan O'Brien's hair or Justin Long.
Such a shame.
Context for Conan the Barbarian. I'll tell you, when I first saw this movie, it was being advertised on LWT, and I saw the ads, and most of the ads were that scene with Schwarzenegger swinging the sword around, right? Sort of like practicing. And, on LWT this Saturday night, Conan the Barbarian, or whatever it was. And I was staying with our grandparents. And they wanted to watch TV in their living room, and they set me up with a tiny little, I mean, how many inches could that thing have been? 10-inch?
Okay.
12-inch maybe?
10 inches more than you were going to get. So.
Yeah. And it was like little black and white TV with an old-fashioned aerial or whatever, and they set me up at the kitchen table, and they just said, "Oh, just watch whatever you want." And it was after The Watershed. So Conan the Barbarian comes on, and I started watching it. So the first time I ever saw this movie was in black and white.
Wow.
First of all. And second of all, I distinctly remember the moment where the village gets ransacked and James Earl Jones takes off his helmet and he walks up to Conan's mother and he looks at her with almost benevolent eyes. And that's the thing about James Earl Jones in this movie, is that he's Mufasa. And, you don't see him as Darth Vader. You see him as Jack Ryan's boss, and he's always this sort of, and in Three Fugitives, he's always this sort of benevolent, grandfather figure. And in this movie, he's pure evil. But he looks at her with these eyes, almost like sort of hypnotizing eyes. And then he swings his sword, and you don't see it make contact. You just see, like, just out of frame, the hair, whip as the head sort of like comes off, and, because and you see like Conan standing there holding his mother's hand, and like her hand kind of leaves him as she falls over, and he's still holding his hand out. And I just distinctly remember that image. I must have been, I don't even know if you were born yet. Well, our grandfather was still alive, so, and he died in February 1993, and you were 2. So I must have been 6 or 7. It would have been not long before, right? So my God, I was too young to watch that movie.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing and they had no idea that I was watching this. No idea whatsoever.
What did they think?
And I remember the sex scene. The sex scene was very sort of defining. I don't think I'd seen a lot of boobies by that point. I didn't understand particularly what was going on. I just knew that there was a boob.
Ooh, it's a boob.
Yeah. And I was so scared that one of them was going to walk in or whatever. But like the TV was, with the back to the TV was facing the entrance to the kitchen. So, you know, I could have easily just changed the channel. And then I saw that there was this moment where they got up to make a cup of tea or something like that. And I went into the living room where they were watching TV and I changed it to the channel that Conan was on. And they were going into the temple and everything's red, right? It's red lighting. And I remember seeing that sort of brilliant, like, red light.
It was in color on there too.
And suddenly it was in color, and they like shooed me out because like, no, we're watching in here, you know. So I went back into the living room, and I'm not sure if I watched it to the end. I don't think I did because I don't remember the end. Like I didn't remember the end until I watched it later on in life. But it really made it. I remember the snake arrow, like a lot of very specific things that sort of like seared themselves into my brain. The music. The music, like the Basil Polidoros' score, which is amazing, seared into my brain. And then, this must have been a Saturday night, because on the Sunday morning, I came home, and our father had taped it. And I remember walking into the living room and seeing Thulsa Doom, James L. Jones, turning into the snake. And I'd seen it in color for the first time. You know, that scene, and and then he realized I was there and he shooed me out.
I see.
It was just one of those movies that just kind of, I saw it way too young and it didn't disturb me or anything. I was fascinated by it. And then I saw it later on in life and I thought it was cheesy. And then I saw it much later on in life and I fell in love with it all over again. And obviously
much later on. You're 70 now.
No, I'm 41 now. I'm going to be 41 in a couple of months. But like, so we're talking like over 30 years later, I'm kind of like, I revisited this and I just bought the 4K, and that was a whole new experience because the Blu-ray I had was like, looked very sort of like worn. And it was I really like, and I started to realize on this last watch, which was a couple of months ago, there's a depth to it.
Yeah.
And there's also a depth to Schwarzenegger's performance. Like, I'll play you the original audio of Hercules in New York.
You did.
Where he that was his first role, and this was like I don't know, 5 years before Conan the Barbarian.
Like it down there.
Let me be the judge of that. I'm tired of the same old faces, the same old things.
Like it down there.
Let me be the judge of that. I am tired of the same old faces, the same old things.
By the time he got to Conan the Barbarian, he'd already had some acting lessons, and Milius's direction really helped him a lot, and he's also somewhat monosyllabic in this movie. He doesn't talk a lot, and his performance is actually really quite good, which surprised me because I'd always had it in my mind that at this point he was really inexperienced, and he didn't improve that much over the years or whatever. But like, if you really like sort of pay attention to him, you realize he knows exactly what he's doing, especially when you get down to sort of like the last few movies of his career before he became governor, like Eraser, End of Days, those movies. Like he's True Lies, like he does know what he's doing. He's a movie star. I think it's just one of those movies that's just kind of seared into my brain and it will never leave me. And every time I watch it, I always go back to being that 7-year-old.
Powerful stuff.
Yeah, powerful stuff. What about you?
Okay, maybe I should have gone first.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I have no context for this film.
Have you seen it before?
I've never seen it.
You've never seen it?
Mm-hmm.
So this is going to be new for you.
Yeah.
So let's do it.
I've been sitting on that because I was waiting for context. And then I realized halfway through your context that maybe I should have gone first.
Okay. All right. Before we go and watch the movie, I will leave you with this question. Let's ponder it. What does Conan say when he tests a cake that's just come out of the oven with a toothpick and finds that it's ready? Crom! Let's go watch the movie.
Warrior. Thief. Gladiator. Conqueror. Conan.
They said you had come, a man of great strength.
All drown in lakes of blood.
He's evil, a sorcerer who can summon demons.
Now they will know why they are afraid of the dark. Now they will learn what is fear the night.
Between the time when the oceans drank Atlantis and the rise of the sons of Arius, there was an age undreamed of. And unto this, Conan, destined to wear the jeweled crown of Aquilonia upon a troubled brow. It is I, his chronicler, who alone can tell thee of his saga. Let me tell you of the days of high adventure.
So, what did you think of the movie?
I really enjoyed it. I was really in it. Yeah. Thing is,
you were in it.
Yeah, you didn't see I was the guy with the big muscles and the gap in his teeth.
Oh.
So apart from that's a hefty runtime. That's long. It's 130 minutes.
Yeah. Well, it was 2 hours in the cinema. No, I think it was 2 hours and 10 minutes in the cinema, and then they cut it down for home release, and then they restored it. So yeah.
So yeah, no,
it's mainly because it's split up into it's got a very strange structure. It's like split up into a lot of different parts.
It's almost like you're reading like chapters of a book. Like it's kind of split up in this sort of episodic way.
Yeah, I think that's what they were going for. But there is a through line. It's not just
no, it's not, and it's not like an anthology or something. It's just it really feels like you're being told a sort of swords and sorcery tale.
The adventures of
it's I didn't feel that he was wooden or anything. I thought that what you said during the opening section of this episode was correct, that he did do a lot of sort of acting choices. He made acting choices, and he I liked his performance.
He's also very brooding, very pensive.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things like left unsaid that are just sort of given across in sort of looks and sort of body expressions, things like that.
Yeah.
That's, I think, good direction, because you have to understand that the three leads, they took a massive risk on it. Okay, Jerry Lopez. Fuck me.
Jerry Lopez. Watch my mouth.
Lopez.
There we go.
Jerry Lopez, who played Subotai, was a surfer, and Sandal Bergman, who was a dancer, who played Valeria, and Arnold Schwarzenegger was a bodybuilder. So
they're all really good.
Yeah, but they weren't first and foremost actors. So they were taking a big gamble on them, and I think that with his inexperience, if you look at it through the lens of the fact that he had very little actual acting experience, he had an acting coach, he had a dialogue coach to sort of like take the edge off his accent a little bit, because that whole thing in Hercules in New York, considering all of that, you can see the work behind the scenes of a good director.
Yeah, I did think that it was all just very detailed, like all the sets and the environments are really detailed. I really love the opening forge scene. I like watching things being forged.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed sort of seeing the skull sort of insignia on the hilt of the sword being carved out of stone or steel, whatever it was.
Yeah.
The village raid was good. Got what you were saying about the mother's death.
Yeah. Did you notice that during the forge scene, that you first see Conan as a child, sort of framed behind fire, as if he himself is being forged in fire.
Interesting.
Yeah.
No, I didn't pick up on that.
Because that's basically what Thulsa Doom's argument is, that I made you what you are, that you can't create steel without abusing it, basically.
Okay, I see that.
Yeah.
I do feel that this movie could have benefited from more quiet moments, like as in there didn't need to be a musical score over every single moment. The moment sort of where his father's been eaten by dogs, right? All good to have music. And then there's like this moment, all up until his mother's death, where it just could have benefited from some silences, just for some tension.
So there is a reasoning behind that. I mean, it is almost wall-to-wall music, but the reasoning behind it is that Milius talked to Polydorus about creating a feel of opera. He wanted it to be operatic. That's why there's lots of vocals in there, lots of that's why there's lots of like choral elements in there. It does give it that kind of gothic operatic kind of feel. I mean, it's I don't know how it played in 1982, but
I was trying to watch the movie with that lens because I have lots of friends who aren't able to watch 80s movies that they didn't see when they were kids. And I love watching movies I haven't seen, which I should have seen, but from the 80s. I love it. I love the vibe. I love the style. And I do try and sort of look at it through that lens of this is what was being made at the time and this was the style, and I love that style. So I didn't have a problem with it. It was just that in terms of stakes and tension in a scene, it would have benefited, like specifically that scene. There are a couple of others that I didn't write down that I did think of. So I asked you this after his mother gets killed and he's like taken into slavery, right?
Yeah.
Right. What exactly were they doing? What was the wheel that they were churning?
Yeah.
And follow-up question, he was the only one that survived, but over the years they didn't like nick other children and like sort of replenish.
I don't know.
Where did everyone go?
Yeah, I think that first of all, in terms of population, it's a sort of, I think it's fictional age called the Hyborian age is what they're talking about, sort of like pre. And the idea is that these villages are kind of scattered. They're not sort of built close together. It's kind of out in the middle of nowhere in the wilderness kind of thing. So I would imagine that there probably weren't that many people around. Yeah. And you can see that there are a lot of montages every time Conan goes from one place to another. Yeah. There are a lot of these long sort of John Ford-esque montages where he's just traveling to give you an idea of
city and eating.
Or walking through a city and eating. But it gives you an idea of like how vast this world is. In terms of the Wheel of Pain, what the way that I interpreted it was that Thulsa Doom, when he meets Conan halfway through the movie, he says, "Oh, I must have been younger. There was a time when I valued steel above all else. I was just looking for steel."
You killed my mother. You killed my father. You killed my people. You took my father's sword.
It must have been when I was younger. There was a time, boy, when I searched for steel. And steel meant more to me than gold or jewels.
The reasoning for sacking the village really is like, I mean, you didn't really, I mean, he could have just gone and bought a few swords from a blacksmith. You know, why did he have to go and sack the village? And the same question can be applied to what exactly are they churning with the Wheel of Pain. At the end of it, you don't really get a sense of any sort of work having been done. And I kind of sort of attribute that to the senselessness of violence, that there is no logic to it, and I think that was by design. And it also, in terms of the viewpoint, you're also seeing it through Conan's eyes in a way. So perhaps like he doesn't know, like there is no sort of reasoning for him, and all he can see is the need for revenge.
Interesting. Okay.
So yeah, I mean,
I was like under the impression that because there's a lot of sort of like underground temples and things like that, that there's sort of something under the surface that we're not seeing. But that explanation is pretty good actually. Yeah.
I don't know if I explained it well, but anyway, it's more of a feeling than a sort of a logical thing. And there's a lot that goes on in this movie that's more sort of, you know, that it's kind of like open to interpretation, I guess, but definitely not something that I could sort of easily explain. I just know that I like it, or it makes me feel a certain way. But I mean, I'm sure if you like search online, and like Milius probably talks about it in depth. But did you notice the scout?
What scout?
before the village gets sacked. First of all, there's this
the scout that jumps up on the rock.
Yeah. There's this like juxtaposition between the approaching army and the tranquility of the village, and this scout goes ahead of the army and sort of like jumps up onto a rock and is kind of surveying the area. That is Franco Columbu, who is credited at the beginning of Jack Slater 4 as the director of Jack Slater 4, and he's a good friend of Arnold Schwarzenegger's. I believe that they worked out together, and that there was a whole history. That's just a little tidbit there. Okay, next thing on your list.
Oh, I just wrote fuck witch.
Fuck witch. Okay, so we're skipping the
gladiator scene.
The gladiator scene, the Atlantis cave.
For me, it was all very sort of...
The wolf skins he makes from the wolves.
Half of the course.
Yeah.
Him being a gladiator, The scene underground was interesting with the sword.
There's also that moment where... I told you this when we were watching it. So he's a child on the wheel of pain. Yeah. And that I told you in the context section that I was kind of hovering while our father was watching the movie on the Sunday morning after. And you see the child Conan pushing the wheel, and then he slowly morphs he becomes teenager Conan, and then he becomes Arnold Schwarzenegger. And our father like didn't know I was there, and he was just sitting there watching, and he goes, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like before he lifts his head up, as if that was something that was, I just predicted that. Anyway,
I have no.
It's a bit of a Lion King moment there as well. That they're walking across the stream, and they just sort of age. Anyway, yeah. So the witch scene.
They said you would come from the north, a man of great strength, a conqueror. A man who would someday be king by his own hand. One who would crush the snakes of the earth.
Snakes? Did you say snakes?
What is it you seek?
A standard. A symbol. Perhaps on a shield. Two snakes coming together. Facing each other, but they're one.
With a sun and a moon below. Black sun, black moon.
Yes.
There's a price, barbarian.
I've never quite... Oh, what?
Fuck witch.
Fuck witch. I've never quite understood it, to be honest. I mean, she's there for a purpose, like to give him direction. She tells him to go to Zamora.
Zamora!
And she tells him that he's destined to become king by his own hand, which is news to him.
Well, she's a succubus, isn't she?
Succubus?
No?
I mean, like, she's a seer, I would imagine.
A what?
A seer. Like, she has the gift of sight.
Yes, but it only works through sex, and then she devours the men afterwards. So that's kind of more succubusy, isn't it?
What would be the point of that, though, to devour the person that you're giving information?
I don't think that her idea is to give him information. I think it's that she sort of... I read it that she steals, like, essence.
Okay, that makes sense. Zamora,
doesn't make sense. Yes. What are you talking about?
Snakes? Did you say snakes? So he gets his crucial bit of information, and then he meets Subotai.
Give me food, so I have strength when the wolves come. Let me die not in hunger, but in combat.
Who are you?
I am Subotai, thief and archer.
Yeah.
Who is
and then he punches
Jerry
a camel.
And then he punches a camel, indeed.
Oh, he just like punches a camel, and the camel takes a minute, totters a bit, and then falls over. And I was like, okay, I like this movie now. Yeah, I was like, that is the moment that kind of went me.
He punches the camel.
Yeah,
okay.
He punches the camel. I was like, this movie is good people.
So here we're introduced to Sandal Bergman, who was last seen before this in All That Jazz, Bob Fosse's All That Jazz. And she has a sultry dance sequence because she is first and foremost a dancer. She is in peak athletic condition, and you can see the way that she moves, the way that she fights, the way that she sneaks around. You know, it's just, I mean, she's brilliant. I find it very, very strange that she wasn't a bigger deal. I mean, I would say that this is probably the beginning of her acting career, and that her acting is a little bit stilted here and there or whatever, but she's still
actually quite good.
She's still like, yeah, I mean, but what I'm saying, like, through that, she still manages to give over the emotion that she needs to give over, and she is the emotional core of the movie and the emotional core of Destroyer, because I think that's mainly the only carryover from Barbarian, is that he's still mourning her. Anyway, so I just wanted to put that out there. She is also probably my first boobie, or one of them.
Wouldn't your first boobie have been the fuck witch?
Yeah, you don't really see anything. And also, I must remind you that I was watching it in black and white on a tiny little TV. Where are you now?
Some transitions from scene to scene are executed a bit poorly, but you know, I couldn't give you an example. I just wrote that down.
Okay.
I believe this must be about the booby scene. I've written, "It's like coming with a woman," which is, of course, an Arnold Schwarzenegger quote from an interview where he's talking about what it feels like to work out.
The greatest feeling you can get in a gym, or the most satisfying feeling you can get in a gym, is the pump. Let's say you train your biceps. Blood is rushing into your muscles, and that's what we call the pump. It's as satisfying to me as coming is, you know, as having sex with a woman and coming. So can you believe how much I am in heaven? I'm like getting the feeling of coming in the gym. I'm getting the feeling of coming at home. I'm getting the feeling of coming backstage when I pump up, when I pose out in front of 5,000 people. I get the same feeling. So I'm coming day and night. I mean, it's terrific, right? So, you know, I'm in heaven.
Right, so we've skipped over the snake?
Yeah, the snake.
So they sneak into the temple, and they kill the snake, and they take the jewel.
Kill the snake, and they take the jewelry.
Yeah. And the snake is like a sort of puppeted
animatronic. He pays her, or he gives her the big red stone.
Yeah.
And then it's like coming with a woman.
Did you notice the long stretches of no dialogue?
Yeah.
And I find it interesting because, like, none of this needed any dialogue, and it's played out with just like you get the point, you get the emotion. I kind of like that. I like the way that it's because I would say that if anything, Destroyer has too much dialogue, and he talks too much, and his acting is dreadful in that movie. Probably
maybe that was, you know, a clever move on the part of the director and the production. That,
I believe that was
give him less lines, and then you know, less chance to.
Yeah, I believe that was by design, but also I think that John Milius is a highly skilled director, more so than Richard Fleischer, who directed Destroyer, and also Red Sonja, which is widely regarded as the worst of this lot. But he's not quite playing Conan in that movie, but he's Conan in everything but name.
And then the next thing that happens is that they meet Breakogs.
They meet Max von Sydow, who plays King Osric,
which was a surprise.
Why, Rexar himself has come before me, threatened me, the king. What daring! What outrageousness! What insolence! What arrogance! I salute you.
Yes, and he laughs a lot. But this is the second call to action, because the first call to action is that obviously he's out for revenge, and that's the through line to the whole movie. It's part of the draw of it for me that I really enjoy that, mainly because of how unbelievably despicable Thulsa Doom and his followers are in that first sort of village scene where they ransack the village. So they've sort of set the bar high, and you expect that there's going to be a very satisfying payoff. So you've got that sort of revenge through line, and then Max von Sydow's King Osric sends them on a quest to retrieve his daughter, who has been hypnotized by Thulsa Doom.
Indeed.
And has become one of his followers. And we can see from the sequence in the temple that it's established that his followers are basically sacrificing themselves for him. Or to him, to his snake.
To his snake.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's why she screams, because the snake is dead.
Yeah.
And then Conan goes off by himself because he doesn't want to involve the other two. It's a personal quest, and he goes off and sort of steals a priest's uniform and tries to infiltrate Thulsa Doom's cult.
Temple.
Yes.
At which point he does get found out and he gets crucified.
Yeah, well, the scene before that is very interesting to me because that's when they meet for the first time, and there's like sort of an outpouring of emotion when he says to him, you know, you killed my mother, you killed my father, you killed my people.
Yeah. So that was interesting. I thought it was sort of obvious that he wasn't being particularly careful. Like, he does sort of stick out, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So I think that his second infiltration attempt later on is much more successful,
right.
Just because he doesn't try to blend in. You know, it's just sort of like hiding and then killing people. That's sort of what he do.
Right. I mean, you gotta sort of take into account his backstory in that he's literally grown up just pushing a wheel. He's had no education. He doesn't know the ways of the world. He doesn't know anything about women. He's been sort of fed women as a gladiator. And he's studied things, but he hasn't really had any experience beyond sort of killing. So that's what he knows how to do. So everything else in the movie is basically a learning experience for him.
Yeah.
And then he gets crucified. And then we did the Jungle Book vulture voices.
So what we're going to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? Look, Flaps, first I say what we're going to do. Then you say, I don't know, what do you want to do? Then I say what we're going to do. You say what you want to do. What we're going to do, what you want. Let's do something. Okay. What do you want to do?
Yeah, so the vulture's going, what do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do?
What do you want to do? Hey, look at this guy.
Don't start that again. The resurrection scene I thought was really cool. They had those very subtle animations of demons on top. I thought that worked really well.
She's fighting tooth and nail to stop them from taking
her flailing notwithstanding. It was very good.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool.
Yes.
Just like visually, it looked like, I don't know, like brush strokes or it's like very specific look to it, which was otherworldly and cool.
Right.
Well, my last two notes are extremely unhelpful and non-descriptive.
Okay, well, my next thing here is I've written foot soup.
Yeah, foot soup.
Foot soup. I mean, it's actually hands, but like
I've written leopard rar.
Yes, there's a leopard randomly in there, but like this is one of the scenes that really stuck in my brain. Obviously I didn't know that it was an orgy, but then again, if you're a child, there's not much to sort of. They don't
it doesn't really look like an orgy.
It doesn't really look like an orgy. There's just like a little bit of sort of lethargic groaning, and they're all sort of like lying as if they're completely wasted, on top of each other.
It's just a muckabout, isn't it?
Yeah,
There's no real.
But it's kind of horrifying. You mentioned like there's a guy that's just sort of been split in half. They walk through what the set designers called the kitchen.
Very nice.
Yes, and then they bring in the what I've called the foot soup into the orgy chamber, and there's that scene that stuck in my head, which is Thulsa Doom turning into a snake, which I thought was, and to this day think is really, really cool.
Yeah.
I
thought it was a little bonkers.
It's bonkers.
Yeah, but why? Why is he turning into a snake?
Because he's a sorcerer,
and
he's
the
basically
snake doesn't do anything.
Maybe he's a snake before he's a human. Maybe he's not a.
You mean he's really a snake, and the sorcerer is the disguise?
Yes,
the human is the disguise.
It could be. So yes, foot soup, orgy scene, foot soup, orgy scene, lethargic.
Tick. The set work is amazing.
Yeah,
like it lots. That's what I've written.
Another thing that always stuck in my head, what I talked about in the context section, was the snake arrow.
Yeah.
That he sort of takes the snake, straightens it out so it's rigid, and then fires it. And it goes right through Valeria's waist.
Yeah.
And there she dies.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then they burn her.
Why do you cry?
He is Conan. Cimmerian. He won't cry. So I cry for him.
And again, a lot of like brooding, a lot of silence, not a lot of dialogue. And there's this really nice scene that also showcases some of Schwarzenegger's acting.
Yeah.
Where
talking about the spring.
Yeah, where it's just a short 1.5, 2-minute conversation that he has with Subutai in the calm before the battle, and they cut that.
They cut that? But
That
that's
is
like
one
he
of the
really
scenes,
sells it.
Yeah, that is one of the scenes in the extended version that should never have been cut.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure why they did, but anyway, it's I always really like that scene, so I'm glad to see it back.
I remember days like this when my father took me into the forest and we ate wild blueberries. More than 20 years ago. I was just a boy of 4 or 5. The leaves were so dark and green then. The grass smelled sweet with the spring wind. Almost 20 years of pitiless combat. No rest, no sleep like other men. And yet the spring wind blows, Superdai. Have you ever felt such a wind?
They blow where I live, too. In the north of every man's heart.
It's never too late, Superdai.
No. It would only lead me back here another day. In even worse company.
For us, there is no spring. Just the wind that smells fresh before the storm.
And then we have the battle.
Crom, I've never prayed you before. I have no tongue for it. No one, not even you, will remember if we were good men or bad, why we fought or why we died. No. All that matters is that two stood against many. That's what's important. Balor pleases you, Crom. So grant me one request. Grant me revenge. And if you do not listen, then the hell with you.
I really like the contraption that he builds. That he sort of sets up the dummy helmet and the Sven Göransson or whatever his name is, the big stuntman, comes over and sort of like smashes it, and that triggers a device that basically.
It's a booby trap.
And I like the look that he gives him. That he's just sort of like studying him as if kind of savoring the moment because is one of the guys that murdered his family.
Definitely watches the light leave his eyes there. Yeah.
Yeah. So you said when Valeria turns up as a Valkyrie.
Yeah.
Do you want to live forever?
Ah, she's a Valkyrie.
She's a Valkyrie.
She's in Valhalla.
Yeah, and she's sent by Crom to aid Conan.
Okay, that's really cool.
Conan
Okay,
prayed.
I didn't pick up on that. It was very sort of blink and you'll miss it. I thought that she was dressed as an angel.
Mm.
No, Valkyrie makes sense.
Yeah, she is indeed in Valhalla.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, that sort of changes my experience of it. Fine. Okay.
Yeah, I really like that. And then the final scene, which is again another ending.
It's like an epilogue.
Yeah, it's like an epilogue where Conan goes to the temple and goes back to kill Thulsa Doom, and then once he severs his head, throws it down the long staircase. So all of his followers just kind of throw their torches in the pond, and just sort of
walk away. They disperse.
Walk away, and you got this nice kind of pensive scene where Conan's just kind of taking stock. I think the last piece of dialogue in the entire movie is when he's praying to Crom.
Mm.
I don't think he says anything after that.
Oh, his dialogue.
Yeah.
Okay.
His dialogue. He because Thulsa Doom speaks to him, but he doesn't talk back.
My child, you have come to me, my son. For who now is your father if it is not me? Who gave you the will to live? I am the wellspring from which you flow. When I am gone, you will have never been. What will your world be without me, my son?
And I think that it's just a really clever use of him as an imposing presence. He doesn't have to talk so much.
Yeah.
And I think that was another failing of No Time to Die is they gave Daniel Craig way too much to say.
Mm.
And if you look at Casino Royale, it's much more considered.
Yeah.
There's less sort of him talking about what he feels. There's a lot of giving that over by doing.
Silent assassin.
Yeah, silent assassin, exactly. Whereas in No Time to Die, he's just sort of like very, very chatty, just like won't shut up, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I feel that this sort of serves Schwarzenegger's inexperience very, very well, aside from the fact that he's got that movie star quality that he can just sort of be. and he's magnetic. The way that he comes down the steps and she bows to him, and then he sort of walks past her, and then he comes back and he holds out his hand. And, you know, you see the makings of a king, you know, because up until now he's barbarian, right? Gladiator, thief, slave, whatever it is. And you see the makings of the king. And then it just sort of transitions to however many years in the future where he's sitting on the throne of Aquilonia, wearing the crown on a troubled brow.
So did Conan return the wayward daughter of King Osric to her home, and having no further concern, he and his companions sought adventure in the West. Many wars and feuds did Conan fight. Honor and fear were heaped upon his name. In time, he became a king by his own hand. This story shall also be told.
And it's kind of a shame to me. That always kind of makes me a little bit sad, because one of the first iterations of the script that actually got greenlit was written by Oliver Stone. And this is before Oliver Stone was a big deal. And Oliver Stone was a fan of the Conan books. Milius, I think, came to it a little bit later. But Oliver Stone was a fan, and he wanted to make a series of them, and he wanted Schwarzenegger to be committed to a series of them that would sort of be almost like sort of the James Bond series. But it just didn't happen, and I think that Milius leaving Destroyer, he said that the script was awful. It could have continued, and they wanted to take the edge off it. It's kind of a Batman and Robin, Batman Forever kind of a situation. That they wanted to take the edge off it and make it more family friendly, which is a shame because this movie is so not family friendly, and that is one of the things that works in its favor. It's got its silly moments and it's got its pulpiness and all that stuff, but if you watch Destroyer, you'll see this with new eyes because it's just like so silly. I enjoy watching Destroyer just for the, you know, what you were talking about earlier. It's like, it's a silly kind of sword and sorcery.
I didn't think that this movie was silly swords and sorcery. I thought it was actually a very successful swords and sorcery with
a very
but
I'm saying that it's like it's got that
stylized world. Like
but it's got that very specific kind of 80s cheese to it, the second one, that I enjoy, but at the same time I'm watching the movie and I'm going, this is just so crap. So it's a shame because that whole thing at the end promises that this story will also be told, and it just wasn't. It wasn't. And Schwarzenegger's been talking about, and I would advise against this, but he's been talking about doing a King Conan movie. But I think the ship has sailed. It's done.
Just leave it alone.
Yeah. Anyway. Well, let's go to Trivia Corner. Trivia Corner. Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sandal Bergman did their own stunts, as suitable body doubles could not be found.
I mean, I'll buy that.
Yep. Arnold Schwarzenegger had weapons training, martial arts training, and horseback riding lessons from specialists. He trained with an 11-pound broadsword 2 hours a day for 3 months. Each broadsword cost $10,000 and had to look weathered. He also learned climbing techniques, how to fall, roll, and jump from 15 feet in the air. John Milius made sure all of these were videotaped, and according to Schwarzenegger, they were just as intense as training for bodybuilding competitions. Franco Columbu was his trainer and was rewarded with a small part in the film.
Got it.
James L. Jones was a last-minute addition to the cast because of his commitments on Broadway. He and Arnold Schwarzenegger became friends on set. Schwarzenegger helped Jones stay in shape, and Jones, as well as Max von Sydow, coached Schwarzenegger on acting.
That's super nice.
Yeah.
That's a really nice story.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Sandal Bergman was a professional dancer whose few previous film roles were in dance-related films. She was recommended for the role by director Bob Fosse, of Cabaret fame, and Chicago, who worked with her in All That Jazz, 1979. Chicago. The sword's inscription reads, "Suffer no guilt, ye who wield this in the name of Crom."
I was wondering about that. Very cool.
While he was governor, Arnold Schwarzenegger displayed it behind his chair in the Reagan cabinet room.
Dope.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Yeah. In an interview, John Milius said that the dogs they used in the film were very unfriendly and dangerous. He even went as far as to say, when you had the dogs chasing Arnold Schwarzenegger and he's running, he's actually running for his life because he knew those dogs were very dangerous and they even attacked their trainer.
Arnold tells a story about the wolves really chasing him, and they really were, because I don't think those dogs were very well trained. They attacked their own master several times while we were there.
So we did the scene and I ran,
And the first time we shot it without those wolves, and the second time we shot it with it. And sure enough, everything that could go wrong went wrong. I somehow got to the place where I was supposed to climb up and couldn't find my first step. And the next thing I knew was this wolf jumping on my back, ripping me down from the top of the rock, and I'm falling down and injure myself. And the front of this animal was right in my face like this, just totally. And the animal trainer was luckily right there on top of it, pulling it away and stuff like that. So these were the first few stitches. This was like still in the morning. It hasn't got noon yet on the first day of shooting when I already got my first few stitches with the medic there. You know, and in Spain, it's not a doctor that comes to stitches up your back. It's a medic that just goes, yeah, I got a needle there, and is that stitching you up. I'm sitting there the first day of shooting. So it was quite an interesting beginning, I would say.
And then I remember the thing where Arnold did fall down the rocks, and he looks and he's bleeding, and he says, I'm bleeding. And I said, yeah, look, it looks great, don't touch it, you know. And he says, he goes, but I'm bleeding, you know. And then I said, the pain is only momentary, but the film is eternal.
Pain is temporary, but movies are forever. He says, this movie will be forever.
Jesus, fuck.
Yes. Conan's prayer to Crom just before the Battle of the Mounds begins is his last dialogue in the movie. I was right.
You are right.
Real arrows were shot into the snake right over Arnold Schwarzenegger's head. So the big snake. So it's not Jerry Lopez firing the arrows. It is, in fact, John Milius. He shot them himself after it was determined he was the best archer in the crew. Neither Arnold Schwarzenegger nor Sandal Bergman had ever done a love scene before this film, and both felt awkward about doing one together. The fake blood used in the film came in the form of a concentrate, which has to be mixed with water prior to use. Due to the cold weather, it was mixed with vodka as an antifreeze instead. In the scenes in which the actors were supposed to split the blood, they would swallow it instead, then go back to the special effects man for more.
Classic.
Yep. The film is named for Conan, but the character's personal history seems to be based on Karl the Conqueror. Robert E. Howard, the creator of both characters, gave a more detailed origin to Karl. Conan was a young adventurer who apparently left his homeland voluntarily. He was never a slave or gladiator in any story by Howard, while Karl was exiled from his homeland and spent time first as a slave, then as a gladiator before usurping a throne.
Okay.
The character Thulsa Doom is both named after and partly based on an enemy of Karl and not of Conan. The serpent cult features prominently in tales of both characters. According to the original script, the tomb where Conan gets his sword was from the lost city of Atlantis. Arnold Schwarzenegger said in the behind-the-scenes features that during the crucifixion scene they used a live vulture to peck at his wounds. Then, for the close-up, they used a real dead vulture they found for him to actually bite into its throat.
They found a real dead vulture?
Yes, they found it. Yeah, it says here they found it. I just said it. Why
I was quoting you.
Yes, you were quoting me. So they used it to actually bite into its throat. After they cut, they immediately had Arnold rinse out his mouth to avoid disease. You can also see him go...
Yeah. There was actually a real vulture leaning over to me, but then pulling back. And then we picked it up by putting this vulture that just died mysteriously. And I bit into that neck. And the reason why I remembered it very carefully was because right after that, the medics always ran up to me and gave me something to gargle with because of the danger of getting really, really sick because of this being still a real thing, except it was now stuffed and all that. But I mean, just very primitively done.
The snake cult of Thulsa Doom is modeled after the Flagellants, a cult that arose in Germany at the time of the Plague of the Black Death in the mid-14th century. They are wearing similar white robes and some are whipping themselves. Stunt coordinator Terry Leonard broke his leg doing a fall. According to Arnold Schwarzenegger, Leonard was trying to impress Sandal Bergman. Sure enough, they started dating afterwards. That's the scene where he goes down the rope. I think he was doubling Super Tie. He goes down the rope in the temple. There's just a big cylinder. The brief scene with an older Conan sitting on the throne of Aquilonia was filmed in 1980 prior to most of the other filming. This footage was initially intended to be a trailer, but John Milius decided to use it as the opening sequence of the film. Following concerns from the producers, the scene was moved to the end of the film. Not sure what the concerns were, but I feel like producers generally interfere.
And studio execs, yeah.
John Milius and Basil Polidorus worked together during the production to determine the themes and emotional tones for each scene. Milius's original concept for the film and its music reportedly involved an opera with little or no dialogue. Polidorus composed enough musical pieces to cover most of the film, which is something that you complained about earlier, but I love the score, so I it's something that I enjoy about it. Some of the stuntmen took too long to die and had to be paid extra just to lie down and stay down. This is my 15 minutes. I'm not going down without a fight.
I can feel my legs.
There was a scene that's in the deleted scenes that's on the disc where King Osric is murdered in his throne room. Yes. So it says here that King Osric's death was cut from the film. He's murdered in the throne room by Thulsa Doom's henchmen, and it can be found on the DVD. Well, okay. I've written here a couple of paragraphs about the alternate versions. The previous Blu-ray was cut of certain sequences, also cut for violence, and also cut for the horse falls that happen on the mound. You remember when you said they're ruining their sticks?
Breaking all the sticks.
Right. So the sticks were made of rubber, and I'll play a clip now. The stuntman, the stunt coordinator, talked about this, and he said that the horses were trained. They were trained to do those falls. The stuntman also goes down the hill and is thrown off the horse. So obviously the sticks aren't real. They're made of rubber because, people sort of don't seem to notice. They're too busy complaining about the horses. They don't seem to notice there's a human also going down there. And that you can see that the horse kind of does a somersault and then gets up and walks away. You can see it to the left of frame.
There was absolutely no animals injured. The only animals were the Great Danes, these huge Scandinavian guys. They were the only ones who were ever injured. But the animals themselves, real animals, were never injured.
Talking about animal rights activists, they picketed that sequence that I was involved in. It looked supposedly so real to the animal rights people that they questioned the truth of the stunt. And they thought that this horse had gone through these punji sticks that were used in Vietnam. And they talked to John about this. And I think John's answer to those people was very succinct. He said, "Ladies and gentlemen, did you see a stuntman falling through those sticks prior to the horse going through them? When that horse fell down the hill, there was a stuntman ahead of the horse. Do you think the stuntman died? No. Well, the horse didn't die either. They were made out of rubber."
This is very controversial in the UK, I believe. There's also a thing about The Abyss, that in The Abyss, the 4K that was just released, every edition of The Abyss that's been released in the UK, there's a scene where they demonstrate breathing liquid on a rat. Which actually exists. The rat takes in the liquid and can then use it to breathe underwater. And then they take the rat out, they turn it upside down, the liquid drains. So a lot of animal rights activists complained about this scene, so it was cut from the release in the UK. And this is the first time that The Abyss has been released on disc in HD or 4K. And in the UK, they don't have it because James Cameron refused to cut the scene. In the UK, it's against the law for them to show any kind of animal cruelty in movies, which is interesting because there's a sacrifice in Apocalypse Now of a bull at the end of the scene that was filmed. They sort of filmed it documentary style of this tribe sacrificing a bull, which, I mean, it's probably kind of like filming, animal slaughter for meat. But, I would imagine that would probably be a bone of contention for the censors in the UK. But
who knows what these adult-minded...
So anyway, the UK version is cut by 19 seconds to remove the horse falls, and the sex scene with the witch is shortened to remove one brief shot of her bare behind.
Oh no.
Yes, and you can see on the 4K that she's actually wearing a thong anyway. And to reduce her groaning sounds from 6 to 3.
I just don't understand these. Either you're removing sounds, all of them or you're
right. There are 6 groaning sounds, but now there are 3 in the cut version, which means that it's less arousing. The 2007 Definitive Edition DVD remains cut for horse falls, though the sex scene remains intact. And the DVD Special Edition includes added scenes between Subutai and Conan, the scene before the battle, which is what we talked about before. The princess makes more of an appearance at the ending when Conan is sitting on the steps thinking, and is with Conan when they infiltrate Thulsa Doom's domain. Conan and the princess walking towards the sunrise together. So that scene is also cut from the DVD. There's also a verbal epilogue by Akiro the Wizard at the ending credits, which was also cut from the DVD, which is why I love boutique releases like Arrow and Shout Factory and Criterion and Kino Lorber and all those, because part of the cause of taking a film from the distributor or from the original production company and producing it independently is that they are able to take the original prints and give you what is possibly the only uncut, untouched, unaltered version for collectors like myself that want everything to be completely intact. That's the end of Trivia Corner. Trivia Corner. So, thoughts to wrap up?
I think that I was while we were watching the film, I was thinking about how it's very difficult for me to watch 80s movies with friends or with my wife because I know that they're kind of going, oh god, this is so campy, this is so old, it's so.
I had that with Mich. We were watching True Lies.
Yeah, you told me.
Yeah. Did I tell you that she also said around about 50 minutes into the movie, she said, why couldn't they have got an American actor? And I said, have you never seen a Schwarzenegger movie before? She said, a what movie? I said, Arnold Schwarzenegger. She said, that's Arnold Schwarzenegger? And I went, what? And she said, don't tell anybody about this. So
divorce bells are in the air.
I have now told everybody about this.
Yeah.
So there you go.
No, I just think it's a shame that people can't sort of put that aside.
Yeah.
You know? Because I think that when you are able to do that, you can kind of appreciate that movies were made in a different way and there were different considerations and they're, you know, may be offensive to you, but it's definitely fascinating, and I enjoyed the movie just from a lore kind of perspective, just like the world building that they did.
But it's also like a very different style of movie. Like Milius has tried to make something different from the other swords and sorcery movies that were coming out at the time. And if you think about Raiders of the Lost Ark, which is a year apart, you know, Raiders of the Lost Ark doesn't look or sound like this. So I mean, like it's a very specific style. Yeah.
Yeah, so those are my thoughts. I think, you know, if you can put that aside and you can kind of watch this movie and, you know, many others from the same time, you will discover a sort of outdated but very unique feeling when watching a movie.
Right.
You know, I don't feel that way when I watch movies now.
I mean, there's a tangibility. There's a sort of you know, you can sort of almost reach out and touch the, you know, there's a texture to it.
Yeah.
Which is partly the sets and the film grain as well.
Look, there's definite jank, right? But that's because of the limitations of the time.
Right.
It's just,
but it's physical.
Yeah.
It's all there, and the stunts are all there, and nobody's like had a face replacement.
That's true.
Okay, well, I'm glad you enjoyed the movie.
I'm glad you enjoyed the movie.
Yeah, can't shake it. Since I was a child, it's been in my head. So we're gonna have to take another really long break because I've got a lot of projects on the horizon, and I have no time to do them in. It's going to be very tight deadlines. Yeah, and you're going back.
I think I'm going back to work soon.
Yeah.
And to you, the listener, a very special goodbye message. Thank you for listening to this episode. And Johnny,
if you did not listen, then to hell with you.
It's a quote from Conan. It's the movie that we just watched. It's a quote, and Johnny did it. So you see, it's like, it's funny. And if you're not laughing,
then to hell with you.
Goodbye.
Bye.
What's our seat number?